Hello, it's Jeff. Welcome back to the Long Suffering channel. Been a very wacky, crazy last few days for my teams. But what else is new? As I said on my previous video, you think it's easy being a Mets, Jets, and Rangers fan? Still nothing with the Juan Soto circus, soap opera. As I've been saying, this is how it's going to be. Crazy stories every day, all over the place. People that claim to have inside information. First you hear that he's going to be a Yankee, then he's a Red Sox, then he's the Mets. Now the Blue Jays are going to offer more than anybody. And again, this is what Scott Boras does. This is how he creates his circus, his soap opera. This is how he gets the most money for his clients. Even saw a story where the Mets overpaid for Frankie Montas, the pitcher they signed yesterday, because he's a Boras client, and they're trying to do him a favor to entice him to steer Soto to the Mets. I guess similar to when the Jets brought in Nathaniel Hackett to be their offensive coordinator as a favor to Aaron Rodgers to entice Rodgers to want to come to the Jets. Still no news. No, and nobody knows anything. Nobody has any inside information. These are all false stories by either Boris or people that make money from the internet that want to put out clickbait stories. So nobody knows anything. There is a belief that by the time the winter meetings come around, which is pretty soon, that they should have a resolution and they should know where he's going to sign. To be continued. The Jets had an interesting game on Sunday against Seattle. Through almost the first half, it was the other team that was the laughingstock. The other team, in this case the Seahawks, were fumbling kickoffs. They allowed the Jets to return a kickoff for a touchdown. The Jets were up 21-7, complete control of the game, looking to extend the lead. They had the ball in the red zone. Aaron Rodgers had a wide open Garrett Wilson in the end zone. He overthrew him. The next play, Rodgers made a rookie mistake where he ended up throwing the ball right to former Jet Leonard Williams, who made the interception and returned the ball 91 yards for a touchdown, which was an NFL record for longest pick six by a defensive lineman, which, of course, right? That stuff happens only to the Jets and by a former Jet. In a way, like the way they lost and the way they just completely did, the Seahawks did everything they could to lose, and the Jets said, hold my beer, we're going to do one more extra thing than you to try to lose the game, and that's what happened. If there was still a little shred of doubt, a modicum of doubt about whether or not Rodgers should return, this debacle against Seattle should put that to bed. He needs to go. I don't care about the dead cap space. You swallow it. He needs to go. All of his boys need to go. Devontae Adams continues to drop passes, continues to look like he's just as washed up as Rodgers. Hackett, all of his boys, they all need to go. They need to scrub this place clean. And whoever the new general manager and coaches are, let them select their quarterback, either in the draft or through free agency or through a trade. Let them choose who's going to be their next quarterback, because the Rodgers experiment is over. It failed. Example number 27 back on Sunday. There's just no reason to even entertain the notion of running this back with him. I can go on and on about it, but like I keep saying, I'm out of tears with this Jets team. I'm out of anger. I'm out of emotion. I watch the games, but I watch them with an extraordinary amount of apathy. Like I wasn't upset after they lost Sunday. The dumb penalties again, a costly turnover, the Breece Hall fumble again. Rodgers missing wide open players for touchdowns again. Rinse, repeat. Their season's over. The only thing left to do is see who's going to be the next coach, next GM, and where they're going to end up drafting in the first round. Now, another team whose season is not over is the Rangers, who had a very ugly win on Saturday against a bad Montreal team. Last night, they got humiliated by the New Jersey Devils. Yes, the final score was 5-1, but you had Devils fans inside Madison Square Garden chanting, "Let's go Devils," and the Igor serenade. I don't ever remember there being so many Devils fans inside the Garden where they were chanting, "Let's go Devils," loud enough that the TV microphones picked it up. It was loud. And they were doing their post-goal, like the Ric Flair, woo! They were doing that after they scored goals. I mean, they took over the Garden. Devils fans took over the Garden. The game itself was bad enough. When Devils fans come in and take over the Garden like that, that is humiliation. It's Ranger fans that go to New Jersey and take over that building. It's Ranger fans that go to wherever the Islanders' home arena is and take over that building. That's what Ranger fans do. Well, now it's being done to us. And the Rangers are off until Friday when they play the last place Pittsburgh Penguins. The sentiment amongst so many Ranger fans right now is to fire Drury, fire Laviolette, and blow this thing up. I wish it was that easy. It's not. Let's address Chris Drury for a second, the president and general manager. The anger towards Drury, based on what I've seen on social media, is that he should have blown it up after last season, after the playoff loss to Florida. Instead, he decided to run it back, essentially replacing Barclay Goodrow with Riley Smith. Listen, I'm not a Chris Drury fan. I'm not a Chris Drury apologist. I'm not going to sit here and defend him and make excuses for him. But what exactly did you expect him to do? Last year, the Rangers had 55 wins, 114 points, both franchise records, won the President's Trophy, and came within 2 wins of the Stanley Cup Finals. You really expect him to at least try to completely revamp the roster after a season like that? Yes, I know they went out with a whimper against Florida, just like they did against Tampa Bay 2 seasons prior. I know this team isn't built for playoff success, but what exactly did you want him to do? He got rid of Goodrow. I don't care how he did it. He got rid of Goodrow, which is the right move because Goodrow had 1 goal in his first 70 games. I know he had a little heater in the playoffs, but that was the outlier. Goodrow was slow. Goodrow was not getting any younger. The physical abuse on his body over all the years he's played has taken its toll. He did the right thing by getting rid of him. He tried to get rid of Trouba. Apparently, he had a deal in place with Detroit, and Trouba at the last minute was able to nix it by adding Detroit to his no-trade list. What else did you expect him to do? Did you really think he was going to trade Chris Kreider, who had one of his best seasons? He had 39 goals, 75 points, I believe. He even set a career high for assists last season. I know that they could have gotten rid of Kreider because he went from a full no trade to a modified no trade. But did you really expect to trade Kreider, one of the few guys that does score in the playoffs? Say what you want about him, he does score in the playoffs, and he has that speed that you need in playoff games late in the game when defensemen are tired and beat up. He has that speed to get behind defensemen. So you can't trade Panarin full no move. You can't trade Zibanejad full no move. You wanted him to trade Igor after last season with his very, very team-friendly contract, a team that relies so much on goaltending. Did you really expect him to trade Igor? And what exactly did you want him to do? He was handcuffed by bad contracts given out by the previous regime. namely the Trouba contract. I just don't understand the hate towards Drury. Again, I'm not defending him. I'm not saying he's done a great job. All I'm saying is, what did you expect him to do? As for Laviolette, it's been his track record where the first year he goes to a franchise and they have a great year, and there's a tail off the second year. Again, last year, 55 wins, 114 points. Did you really think that they were going to duplicate that type of season? Everything went right for them last season. Everything. So many players had career seasons last year. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Kreider. So many players stepped up and exceeded expectations. Jonathan Quick gave you tremendous goaltending last season that nobody expected. So of course there was going to be some sort of drop-off this season. I don't think anybody expected this, but there was going to be a drop-off. So people that want Laviolette fired, again, who are you replacing him with? You're going to make Phil Housley the interim coach? You're gonna fire Laviolette and Housley and make Pekka the interim coach? This is a mess with no real answer, because you can't make a major trade right now because teams have to wait for the salary cap space that they have to accrue throughout the season. So by the time they get to the trade deadline, they have the cap space to absorb Trouba or Kreider or whoever you want to trade now, or Shesterkin. I mean, yes, the Rangers can they can take back some of the salary, but I believe you can only do that 2 or 3 times. So Drury's hands are tied. There just isn't much he can do externally as far as trades. Again, you're going to waive the manager. He has a no movement clause. You can't waive him. You can't do anything with him. The only thing you can do with him is buy him out. And you can't buy a guy out middle of the season. You have to wait till after the season. And then you buy him out and you have years and years and years of dead cap space, dead money on your cap space. What are you going to do? What's going on is unacceptable. Like I said, last night you had Devil fans taking over Madison Square Garden. I don't remember this ever happening. And I remember the late 90s, early 2000s when the Rangers went 20-something games without beating the Devils. I don't even remember it back then, where you had so many Devil fans coming in and taking over your building and doing the Igor serenade in Madison Square Garden. What happened last night should send... It should let everybody know just how bad this team is. But the frustration is what can be done. Now, what I would do is I would strip Trouba of his captaincy. And in the game on Friday against Pittsburgh, I would bench... You can't bench everybody, but Panarin, Zibanejad, Fox, Trouba, I would bench 2 of them. Your top players, the leaders of this team, I would bench 2 of them, assuming Brett Berard is able to return. You might lose. If you're going to dress Chad Ruedel as your 6th defenseman, you might lose. But those are the types of seismic changes that need to happen. You need to send shockwaves through that locker room, because nothing else seems to be working. Laviolette keeps mixing up lines, mixing up defense pairings. That's all he can really do once the game starts. Now, I'm just going to go through the roster. We're going to look at the players who have had down years. Panarin, down year. Fox has no goals in 24 games. I think he had 17 last year, which was a career high. Let me just double check. Yeah, 17 goals last year. 56 assists, 73 points, a plus 21. Now this year he has no goals, and it's just a plus 4. Zibanejad, minus 14. Minus 14. He has 18 points, Nine of them, I'm sorry, he has a power play goal. He has 18 points, a minus 14, and his offensive production continues to just plummet. He went from his best year, which was 21-22, where he had 81 points and was a plus 30. The next year he had 91 points and was a plus 25. Last year, 72 points, a plus 15. Now 18 points, a minus 14. For somebody that's supposed to be your number one center, he can't have a minus 14, and he can't have his offensive production continue to plummet like this. Alexis Lafreniere, I, like most other fans, were thrilled when he signed his extension a few weeks ago. Like, we were all shocked that his AAV came in under $8 million, because that's what his contemporaries were signing at. But since he signed his extension, I think he's taken his foot off the pedal. I think he looks relaxed. I think it's almost like I got my money, I got my extension. Even if the Rangers trade him, he's still getting his money. And he looks like he has taken his foot off the pedal, and I got my extension. I can take it easy. Very disappointed in him. Kako, he's been okay. He's given you what he can give you, which isn't much. 13 points, 24 games is a plus 10, which you like. Then Vinny Trocheck, another guy that had a career year last year. This year he has just 12 points, and he's a minus 4. Riley Smith, again, what did you expect from him? I didn't expect much from him. He's an older player, right? He's 33 years old. He's going to be 34 in April. He's played 863 games. He's never been a prolific scorer. He's always been kind of a depth guy. His career high was 60 points, which he had in the 17-18 season. So I didn't really expect much from him. He's a solid player. He's solid. Then you have Chris Kreider, who last year set a career high in assists. Last year he had 36 assists. And for a guy that's primarily a goal scorer and not really a playmaker, that's a lot of assists. This year, he's got 0 assists, which is unfathomable considering the ice time that he gets. Hedl, 9.17 games. Again, the injury concerns, the concussion concerns. It's hard to get on Hedl. Schneider's been good. So is Zach Jones. They're giving you what they're supposed to give you. They each have 8 points. They're each a plus 7. And you have Trouba, the albatross of this team. He should have the C ripped off his chest so fast. It won't happen, but that's what should happen. He has 6 points, all assists, no goals, minus 3. And then you have your scrubs. You have Johnny Brodzinski, Victor Mancini, Ryan Lindgren, Sam Carrick. I look at some players and I wonder, how are they on an NHL roster? What does Sam Carrick give you? He's not big. He's not fast. He has no skill. He's not like a shutdown defenseman. What does he give you? He scored the first goal of the season back against Pittsburgh on opening night. He hasn't scored since. And you look throughout his career, he's never been a guy that's really been much of a contributor point-wise. He's played on bad teams with Anaheim, and he was a trade deadline pickup for Edmonton last year. I mean, guys like him, I just wonder what teams see in him that he should be on an NHL roster. I know he's only making $1 million, and you kind of need really cheap guys because you pay the top guys so much. And you have Keandre Miller, who is regressing to a point where if they sign him long term, they're nuts. You have to. He should be one of the guys that's dealt. Jimmy Vesey, another guy. What does he really give you? I know he's cheap. I know you need cheap guys on your roster, but then you have Adam Enstrom. I think there's so much more to his game because of his size and speed. I think he could be more of a contributor. Then you have Barad, Ruedel, Rempe. Then you have the goalies. Quick has been tremendous, and Igor continues to struggle. You know, Igor is something. You know, I mean, I've spoken on this topic so many times. Igor is one of the best goalies in the league. But we've seen this happen to him basically every year except for his Vezina Trophy winning season, where he goes through these stretches where he just looks like he's got nothing. And I'm not necessarily blaming him because the team in front of him, they just don't play defense and they turn the puck over and they so many breakaways, odd man rushes, point blank chances. But now his contract, or what is perceived as his contract expectations, it's hurting the team now, as I predicted it would. Now you have people saying he's not worth 12 million, he's not even worth 11 million. It's becoming a sideshow. He was offered the largest contract in NHL history for a goalie, both total contract and average yearly salary, and he turned it down because of selfishness and greedy and ego. And now, I mean, his goals against is over 3. His save percentage is in the low 900s. He's now under 500. He's 8-9-1. You think a goalie like that is worth 12 million a year or even 11 million? What Igor did was selfish, and I can't get behind somebody that puts their own needs ahead of the team. So if they're going to start trading players, he's probably going to get you the biggest return. And if he still thinks if he still thinks he deserves 12 million and wants 12 million, then you have to trade him, because you can't pay him anywhere close to 12 million. Especially when all of his contemporaries who've signed extensions have all signed them for 8.5 million and less, including Connor Hellebuck on Winnipeg, who is probably the best goalie in the league right now. There is no world in which Igor should be getting $4 million more than Connor Hellebuck. None. I don't care how much the salary cap is going up. This season could still be saved. Excuse me. We've seen plenty of teams. I mean, Edmonton was a disaster early last season. They fired their coach. They brought in Chris Knobloch, who was the coach of the Rangers minor league team in Hartford, and they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. 2019, the Blues fired their coach. They brought in Craig Berube. I believe when they fired their coach, they were like dead last in the whole league, and they went on to win the Stanley Cup. I believe the Penguins in 2009 fired their coach and brought in Dan Baelsma, and they won the Stanley Cup. Seasons can be saved. It usually involves firing the coach, but in this case, we can't really blame the coach per se, because this core of players has done this to the previous coaches. If you're going to save the season, you have to clean up all the mess that's going on in the locker room. And like I said, strip Trouba of his captaincy. He doesn't earn the right to be captain anymore. And bench 2 of your top players, your highest paid players, bench them. Send that message. I'm not a big fan of what's called a bag skate, which is when you really work them hard in practice and you make them do wind sprints back and forth. It's called a bag skate because you feel like your legs are back in the baggage claim. It's obviously a metaphor, but you feel like you have no legs, no skating legs, because you left them back in baggage claim. I'm not a fan of that. I think you can physically hurt your players by doing that, especially older players, and the Rangers have an older team. The one way you can get to them is by taking away their ice time, benching them. To me, that's the only option left to save this season. I'm not looking at major trades, at least not yet. I'm not looking at firing the coaches. This team, this group has to be the ones that solve this problem. They cause the problem, and they have to solve the problem. And you do that by starting to hold them accountable, take away their ice time, puncture their pomposity, right? These guys are entitled. Zibanejad was complaining that his ice time went down a little bit. You know, you have to earn. You have to earn your ice time. You have to earn your roles. You know, against Pittsburgh, what I would do is when they get a power play, put the second unit out first. Put the Cooley and Lafreniere and Kako unit, put them out first. Instead of the usual number one power play. Put them out first. If there's a 4-on-4, instead of, Panarin and whoever, put Lafreniere and Kako out there. Put Cooley and whoever out there. Right? The game Friday against Pittsburgh, it's not about the 2 points. It's about saving your season. It's about sending the message that the way things are going, you can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. If I'm Peter Laviolette and they have practice today, I would have that audio playing of Devils fans inside the Garden chanting, "Let's go Devils." Let that resonate. You guys played so bad that Devils fans felt emboldened to come into your arena and take it over. Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden used to be a feared place for fans of the road teams. They would never, ever think about taking that building over, but now they do. Now they can. That's how bad the Rangers have been. If you guys have any pride, if you guys have a shred of desire to turn this thing around, keep playing that over and over and over again. Let's Go Devils should be permeating all over the practice rink today, all over the locker room. Where's your pride? Where is it? How much do you care about this team and this franchise and this city and this fan base? How much do you care? We care. Us, the paying customers, we care. That's why we continue to go to games. We continue to watch the games. We continue to buy the merchandise because we care. We want to see that you care. I've seen some people compare this to the mercenary Rangers of the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't think it's that bad because those players did not care. They only came to the Rangers because the Rangers offered them the most money. There was no salary cap back then. You can offer Bobby Holik $9 million a year, which was absurd. But it didn't matter because there was no salary cap. And that's the only reason why him and Theo Fleury and Val Kamensky, Vlad Malakov, Sylvain Lefebvre, so many of those guys who just didn't care about winning. They just came here for the money and the lifestyle. This is not that bad. I mean, I can go on and on and on about how much I care. The Rangers are a very important part of my life, for better or for worse. I watch every game. Even if they were on ESPN plus Hulu or whatever, and for whatever reason I couldn't get the game on my TV, my wife was able to get on her phone, on her app, and I sat there and I watched the whole 3-hour game like this on the stupid little phone. I could barely see. I'm squinting. It's hurting my eyes, but I didn't care. I watched the full game anyway, because that's how much I care. I have season tickets, which cost a fortune, but because I care, because I want to be there in the Garden if they have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. I want to be there. And the only way to guarantee myself a chance to be there is to have season tickets. So that's why I still have season tickets, even though it's ridiculous how much money I spend on season tickets. I care. I want them to care. And keeping my fingers crossed that The moves are about to be made. The internal moves are about to be made to try and save this season. I mean, again, I can rant for forever about all my teams, but I think this is a very long video, so I'll leave it here. Hope I made myself clear, and thanks for watching, guys. Speak soon.